How far off is the automated estimate that you're looking at about your home's value on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, or any of the 2,000 other websites where you can see this? And this includes even on our website. There's so many of these different home value estimators. My question to you is, how far off is it? Is it anywhere near accurate? How close is it? So I'm gonna share a couple different conversations that I've been having a lot more recently, really than ever, on people not 100% sure on what their home's value is, but this has been something that's surprising. And we hear realtors all the time talk about why home values are wrong and why Zillow is bad and all these other things, and I don't agree with that at all. There's nothing wrong with a home estimate, that's why we use it in our business, but there's way more to the story than just the estimate. So I got a couple of different examples I'm gonna share, and hopefully it at least gets you educated to the point where you can look at a few of these, get a much better idea of what your home really is worth. And as always, my name is Christian Stubbs. I'm a team leader here at Onyx Homes, and we're always making this type of content so that you can know exactly what we see going on. And this really was spurred from several conversations that we had last week with people who are looking to make a move and sell their property, and they're not really entirely sure what it's worth. So I'm going to explain why that home value, that automated home value, is wrong. But first, let's really explain what this is. So Zillow made this famous. They were the first ones to come out with it, and they call it their Zestimate. So this is the Zillow estimate of your home's value. And there's a lot of articles that were written over the last couple of years about how Zillow ended up losing hundreds of millions of dollars by purchasing properties based on this Zillow estimate. I'm not gonna go too far into that. The reality is I can read a quote directly from Zillow's website when asking, or when they're explaining what the Zillow estimate is. Their exact words are, a Zestimate is not an official appraisal, but it's a starting point to determine a home's value. And I think that really is the important piece, is that it's a starting point. Frankly, even as a realtor, that's something that I look at. And if I don't know anything about a house and someone sends me an address that I'll use here later, an example of 123 Main Street in whatever city, you can just go to Zillow and check out the Zestimate. You're gonna get a ballpark starting place of what that home's really worth. Again, nothing wrong with that at all, but let's go a little bit deeper. In the conversations that I've been having with people who are looking to sell their home, there's been a huge disconnect, or there is not just with the people I talk to, but there's a huge disconnect between this is what my home's worth and a starting point. There are a lot of consumers out there, and this might be you, that are looking at that Zillow estimate and saying, that is what my home is worth, as opposed to looking at it as, that's a ballpark of what my home is worth. And also, like I mentioned, almost every major website that talks about real estate, or at least homes for sale, also has a what is your home worth feature, including our website. So there's a lot of different things in here where if you just look at one website's guess at what your home is worth and you say that that is the number, you might be missing. So let's go into the example of why I'm saying that that number is for sure wrong, and we'll kind of go into more detail of how you can figure out a better idea of what your home is worth, really without having to talk to anybody. You can do it really quick. So let's use a fun example. I've got some numbers up here on my computer. So I've got a property, and I always use 123 Main Street as an example, and it just so happens in the city I used to live, Ladera Ranch, there happens to be a 123 Main Street in Ladera Ranch. So I'm gonna use this exact house. If this is your house, I apologize for using this as the example, but it's easy and it's right in front of me, so I'm gonna do it. All right, 123 Main Street. Now, here's the major thing. Most consumers are gonna look at one website. They're gonna look with a definitive answer that that is what my home's worth. So let's look at this right now, and we'll put these up on the screen so you can see them. But 123 Main Street, Ladera Ranch, the Zillow estimate. So their Zestimate has this property valued at $1.2 million, so 1,215,200. So that is what they are saying this home is worth. And if you were a seller and you looked at that number and you listed for 1.215, you would think you hit it right on the nose, because that was the estimate. Now, here's where this is really important to mention. I do this, and most people I don't think, or most consumers I don't think do, is I want more context. So where does that number come from? Well, Zillow knows your square footage, your bedroom and bathroom count, assuming all of that stuff's correct. They can go and look at the comps and give you a pretty decent idea of what it's worth. That's totally fine. I haven't seen this house either, so it doesn't sound too far off, but I have no idea anything about the house, so I have to look a little bit more data, right? Which is why these estimates are here. Now here's the fun part. Redfin has this house estimated at $1,046,000. So this is a $150,000 difference between two different estimates. Now, an interesting thing to mention here is that Redfin is actually a brokerage, and they have real estate agents that would have to sell that house, and maybe that's a reason why it's lower, is maybe they're a realistic number, or a more realistic number, and Zillow's number is just high because they want you to click on their website, because that's how they make money. So So any of these different options, now all of a sudden we have a huge discrepancy. So if seller A looked at Zillow and priced their home based off of Zillow's estimate and home seller B just used Redfin, you would have a huge discrepancy in price and both think they're right. That is where I see the biggest problem. There's nothing wrong with estimates, but I would definitely recommend trying to look at least two of them before making any kind of a determination what you think your home is worth. Obviously, if you want a real estimate on what your home is worth, you should talk to a real estate professional because there are so many more layers that go into this. But if you're just looking for a surface level easy answer, these are great. Now, let's look at the third option. Realtor.com somehow couldn't even find the address. We were not able to get a home value estimate from Realtor.com because for some reason they don't acknowledge that this home exists. Trulia, this is a little known fact, has exactly the same home value as Zillow because Zillow owns Trulia, so that really makes sense there. Those are really the major four websites. It's interesting that Realtor.com couldn't find this house, but oh well. But just that $150,000 difference between the two is really, it's staggering, but two, it just shows you how far off these could be. So like I said earlier in the video, Zillow said it very, very well, is that this is a starting point to figure out on pricing. If you owned 123 Main Street and you were thinking about selling your house, I don't recommend just looking at one, but let's say you looked at Zillow at 1.215 and you looked at Redfin at $1,050,000, let's just round up. And you could say, okay, my home's probably worth somewhere in between those two numbers. And that would be a lot better analysis than just looking at one number. Even if you just looked at Redfin's number, maybe that's $150,000 low. And if you just went with that, shoot, maybe you cost yourself a ton of money. So let's go into it a little bit deeper. I've got a little bit more information over here on my screen as well too. So what are they really going off of with these analysis? Well, they're looking at the public records. So they're looking at bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, and comparable sales with similar homes like that. Now, in a city like Ladera Ranch, where you have a lot of exactly the same homes or very similar homes, that's easier to do than if you were in a custom estate neighborhood like Nellygale, for example, when none of the houses are the same. Very, very different way to come out with the number. But here's a couple of other things. Is Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, whatever website you like, they don't know if your home was just recently remodeled with gold or if your home just burned down. And they would give you the same value. I kind of jokingly say they don't know if you're the Taj Mahal or if it needs to be bulldozed. The reality is there's no single number of what a home is worth. The reality is you can get a range, but you're not going to be able to say this is what this home is worth. And a buyer isn't just going to walk in and say like, oh yeah, that's what this website says. I'll go ahead and pay that. There are so many more things that go into it. In my experience, this is how I explain to all of our customers and our agents is that there are three different prices for every home. Number one, first and foremost, is the value that an appraiser would put on the home. Now I've got a fun, quick story here, but before I get to that, you could have 10 different appraisers give the value of the property. You could pay 10 different appraisers, $500 each, spend a lot of money, and they would give you 10 different numbers. So it's not like they're pulling all the same levers and getting exactly the same value. You'd be doing essentially the same thing you were doing with the Zillow estimate, except you would have a professional going out there and giving you the home's value. I'll show you why I'm giving air quotes in a second here. So you're gonna get 10 different values and you're gonna have a really low one, you're gonna have a high one, and then it's probably somewhere in the middle is the real value. But again, this goes to a value range, which is the second way, the correct way in my opinion, to price a property. Not price a property, but to value a property. So you have number one is the appraisal, number two is a value range. And how I explain this to home buyers is if you could buy this house for the low side of the range, you should try to buy two of them, meaning it's a really good deal at this bottom of the range. Now, if you had to go all the way up to this price, then it would also be worth it, but just understand you're paying on the high side of what the home is worth. There isn't just one number in the middle. Now, number three leads us to really describing the meaning of value. And number three, I say, is it's whatever it takes to buy the home or whatever we can get out of the home if you're the seller. Now, this is creating that environment where a buyer is going to come in and pay the most money possible. And frankly, if you're not putting your home on the market, you're just not going to know that number. And that's fine. You can go with number two, or if you want to pay a bunch of people to appraise your property, you can go with one. But number two is a value range. Three is what are the things that we can do in order to give that perceived value as high as possible. Let me give you a really exaggerated example of what I'm talking about here. So let's say there's two different scenarios selling exactly the same house. Or let's just say this, there's two houses that are exactly the same that are right next to each other. Exactly the same bedrooms, bathrooms, it's even the same floor plan. Upgrades are exactly the same, all's the same. They're both for sale at exactly the same time. One of them, the entire inside of the house is painted pitch black, darker than my wall behind me. The other home, everything is light and bright. I can say with 100% certainty, the white house is going to sell for more money because it's going to look bigger, it's going to look brighter, and for all of the reasons why we know that every HGTV show, they're painting the whole entire house white, maybe with an accent wall. Now, if you paint a house black or a dark color, I'm using black as an exaggerated example, I've never walked into a house that looked like that, it would be really, really hard to see the size, it would be dark in the home, there's so many negatives here, and we're talking about paint, a choice of color. And there's a lot of in-betweens here, it could be pink, it could be green, it could be whatever, and some might think that's good, but overall, the home that is painted neutral, ready for sale, is gonna sell for more money than a home that doesn't look good. That is first and foremost. I know it's an exaggerated example, but that exactly the same house is gonna have a difference in value. Now we can go even farther with this, and if you're selling your home and your neighbor painted their house pink on the outside, that probably is gonna affect your home's value. If your neighbor brought home a huge motorhome and it is out in front of the yard the whole entire time buyers are coming and looking at the house, that could affect home value. Just as a barking dog could if your neighbor got a dog the day you put your house on the market and maybe they're mad at you and they left it outside to bark all day long and all of the buyers are thinking that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna deal with this barking dog forever. All of these different things are going to affect value, so you have to really look at, if we're just looking at what is the surface level, what do I think my home could be remotely worth, that's great, these estimates are fantastic. My point is, when you're looking at these estimates as this is what my home is going to sell for, that is where they're totally wrong. Going back to full circle on this entire story. So while these are really easy to look at, these home estimates where you can get automated values and they're really quick and easy, if you're really trying to get a better idea, if you're thinking at all about selling your home over the next year, 2, or even 3 years, here's a couple of different options that we give our clients so that we can get you the best idea of what your home would sell for whenever you're ready. Option number 1 is the easiest one. This is where you can go to our website, you can hit that seller tab, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna fill out that form and you're gonna get an automated home valuation. Now we don't stop there. You're gonna get a similar number like what you'll see on Zillow, Redfin, or whatever these different websites are. We go one step further. We manually go in, and if we don't get any additional information from you, which is fine, we'll go through and run a comparative market analysis on the neighborhood and really dial in a range of what this home could be worth. So you'll get the automated one, and then you'll get an updated once a local expert has looked at the property and said, okay, without seeing the property or knowing the upgrades, here's the real range of what I think this is worth. So you'll get something narrowed in that's closer to correct. Now, this would be our example of a starting point, not that first number, but more like the second number is the starting point of really what the home is worth, that value range. All right, option number 2 is probably the most common and where you should definitely be starting if you're thinking of selling next year. I would definitely start here. You again can go to our website or you can reach out to us at the phone number at our office line. We'll put it right down here below. This is where we're gonna have a conversation. So you'll get that automated home value just like we talked about before, but you're gonna go one step further and we're gonna do a little bit of an interview. And what the questions that we ask in this interview are gonna sound something like, how long have you been in the home? When was the last time you did any renovations? What do those look like? How's the kitchen? How's the master? How is the landscaping? Anything that's gonna affect value. And then we're gonna be able to get a much more narrowed down, much more accurate value of your property. Now, what you choose to do with that is totally up to you, but this is an easy, free consultation. Really, it's an investment of about 5 to 10 minutes on the phone, or I guess it could be via email, just to get a little bit more information on the home, to figure out if it's the one that's painted a funky color, or if you just renovated the whole thing, because that's gonna affect value. Now, option number 3 is definitely the most work for both parties, especially us, but this is definitely gonna be the best one if you're serious about selling over the next 2 years. So whether you're planning on selling in 2 months or in 2 years, this is really the one that I would recommend doing, and I'll tell you why in a second. So option number 3 is where you would invite one of our local experts out to your property to give a market analysis of the home, but also a staging consultation. And when I say staging, we're not talking about bringing out furniture and all of that. Staging is really more of a preparation word that we use to get a home ready for sale. And the reason that this is the most important one is usually what we've learned is a seller will wait to the very, very last minute to get their real estate agent involved in the process. When the reality is, if you had your agent involved a year or 2 before you were ready to do this, we can walk through that property and say, hey, this looks fantastic. We can get you a really good market analysis. You have a really, really fair idea of what it would sell for now. And we're also going through the property and suggesting different things that you could could upgrade, you could repair, you could renovate in order to get the most money for the home. So many times we talk to sellers that did this, that, and this other thing to their property, thinking that they were spending money to increase the value of the home. And the reality is they were just spending money on things buyers don't really care about. So this walkthrough is gonna allow you to understand where you can spend the least amount of money to get the biggest value increase, if you're interested in doing that at all. So that is the option number 3. That is definitely the one that I would take advantage of. We will do a free consultation on both of these things. It's usually about a 20-minute to 30-minute walkthrough. If you wanna make it take 2 hours because you have a whole bunch of questions, that's no problem at all. So those are the different options. Number 1 is you just head over to our website, you plug in your number, you'll get that automated one, but then we'll go one step further and really kind of tighten that up, get it more accurate, and you'll get an updated number every single month. Option number 2 is you do that same process, but then you have a little bit of a conversation with us, just letting us know, doing that interview, hey, these are the upgrades that I've done on the house, here's what it currently looks like, so we can really narrow in that value. And then number 3 is the one where, hey, we're probably gonna be making a move, whether it's 2 months or 2 years from now. What should we be doing to the home? How can we prepare? That's definitely the best option. Totally up to you. You have a lot of different ones. All the information is going to be down in the description below. You can also view it on our website. As always, reach out with any questions you have, but I hope this video gives you a better understanding of what an estimate is as a starting point versus a selling strategy for your home. Again, my name is Christian Stubbs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.